Hi
Hey,
everyone.
folks.
Hello.
How's everyone doing today?
Good. So far, so good.
Try to open my camera thing here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Um, so just to start, does anyone have anything they've seen in the software supply chain news recently? I didn't prep for that this week, but if anyone has something, we can take a minute to go over.
I did actually see something. I think Notepad had a compromise um, that in their distribution that looked like it was maybe targeted. Let me dig out that news article. Drop a link.
This one's not an attack, but I thought it was notable that SPDX 3.1 is out for review as of a few days ago. But I haven't dug into it yet, so I don't know specifically what.
Cool. I guess it's some stuff we can look into. Um, yeah, and then the other thing I had for this week is, and if anyone has more stuff, I think we'll have time, so feel free to add it to the agenda. But is the CI dependency recipe card goals and scope doc that I put together. I went ahead and submitted some version of this to the TC repo as an initiative. I think nothing there is like set in stone. That was just to get the ball rolling on figuring out where we're going to publish it and all of that. So feel free to comment on that issue as well. But we can, I think, focus on the doc for now. And then if we make any major changes, I can go ahead and edit the other thing.
Can
Um,
you share that issue?
yes.
Thank you.
I'll put it in chat here and then also in the notes. Um, um, yeah, and I think we should be able to actually get the issue approved in the tag security meeting tomorrow as a official CNCF initiative, which then again just means that we can publish it someplace within the CNCF whenever we're ready. Um, Yeah, and then the other thing is the doc, which I think I linked in the notes. I'll put in the chat here too. And this one is, I think, more of a working document where we can just really kind of dive in and make sure that we're aligned about the goals and the scope and that's all like written very clearly so that when we write this thing, we stay within that scope. This is just based on our discussion from last week. We can go over that. I can share my screen actually if that'd be useful. Um,
And you mentioned you're going to share it in the security tag meeting this week.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think I'll
cool.
mention it then, and that should let us get I think the issue in GitHub. I believe we can approve that in within the tag without having to without having to go through the TOC, which just reduces the number of layers of approval.
And that's I was just looking up in case I'm able to join. That's
Yeah,
Wednesdays at the same time. Does
Wednesdays
this?
yeah, it is the same time. Yeah, this time.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
If anyone needs a link to that, just let me know. I can find that. Um, cool. I think I can share just that window. Did anyone see that? that look like the Google Doc.
Yeah.
So, a lot of screens on my computer. Um, so yeah, I guess we can go through this in order. Is there anything that jumps out to people that we want to talk about, or we can just go through it in order? And I guess something I didn't think to include last time would be like timeline.
So this is particularly managing like the things in your CI, not the stuff in your like Go mod or package lock file, right?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I call out code dependencies here as out of scope. And this is really just the idea being that that would be maybe a future version of this would include that, but for now we're keeping it small.
Are we focusing on GitHub Actions or broader CI?
That's a good question. I wrote it as broader CI, but I think yeah, what do folks think? Do we want to pick a particular CI, probably GitHub Actions, to start as like a really concrete way to talk about it?
I feel like being concrete here is our strength.
Yeah.
And we could talk separately about like I know there's a number of projects that use Prow, and securing Prow is probably very different from securing GitHub Actions.
Okay, yeah, so
We should probably also talk about self-hosted versus GitHub-hosted runners.
does that seem like it'd be two different things, or do you think we can talk about those in this doc together?
I think we can talk about both in this doc, but we may have specific areas where we call out, hey, if you're using self-hosted runners, here's extra stuff you have to worry about. Or here's extra stuff you can do to harden that you can't do on the GitHub ones.
Yeah.
Like you can slap some network policy on the whole, the whole
Use better
namespace
isolation.
runners work in and be like, yeah, I know you don't get network connectivity out of the side of these things.
Yeah, you can actually get some cool isolation stuff that you can do on the self-hosted ones too. But yeah. Wearing the shirt today, so I forgot that. But okay.
So with that specialization, I'm trying to think if it would be clear to call this like GitHub Action Workflow Recipe Card or
Yeah, we should mention that if that's going to be this somehow. And yeah, sorry, Matt, you had your hand up too.
Just in terms of scoping, I know when we were running GitHub Actions, and this is maybe a year old, but there was, a common conversation between like CIO and dev people would be like, what's the approval process for the organization to use a particular GitHub action? And at the time, I don't know if it's still the case, you kind of had this binary choice where you're like, allow, you know, all GitHub actions or only actions within this particular repo. And then some people will be like, oh, well, we can't use generic GitHub actions. So I'm going to effectively like maintain a fork of that action or a pinned dependency that I check into my repo so that I can use this action that I couldn't otherwise use. So do we want to like include any guidance for people who have governance over like an organization's use of GitHub actions about what some of the knobs and levers are? Or do we want to leave that out of scope and leave this more at like developer practitioner level around things like you should pin the version of an action, not just generically use it or something like that? It seems
I like the discussion. I mean, I would love to see some guidance around for maintainers of how to qualitatively decide if a third-party action is you should use it or not. Like if it's got, some number of stars, if it, I don't know, it's something popular versus just the never-ending tail of GitHub actions. I agree. I don't know from at the org level, yeah, the choices are pretty stark there, and I don't think in I I know in open telemetry we wouldn't be able to get away with saying no third-party actions. The maintainers would absolutely revolt.
Lose their mind, yeah.
So to me, my interest is more on like, yeah, there's some middle ground there, right? Of like, don't just go using every third-party action under the sun. Prefer
We were like,
using GH, CLI versus
yeah.
random.
Or if you are going to use some arbitrary GitHub action, how do you assess what it does and what its composition is? Stuff like that.
Do we want to talk about stuff like Step Security's Hardened Runner or not? Because that's not strictly dependencies, but is securing GitHub Actions more generally.
I think we could decide if we want to extend like whether GitHub Actions dependencies recipe card or GitHub Actions workflow recipe card. Maybe worth having throwing a bucket marina of what other things might be there, and then we could come back to that
Yeah.
decision. I'm personally good with both options.
So like, as in, what other things like, as in, like what other runners? What other?
Yeah, other things besides dependencies that would fall under GitHub Actions workflows
Okay,
security.
got it. Yeah, and I think especially as we're focusing on specifically GitHub Actions, that stuff might come back into the scope. Um,
I mean, you could consider hardened runner a dependency, but it's a
yeah,
slightly different question.
that makes sense. So, I mean, maybe the thing that makes sense to do is to start kind of outlining, because I mean, we're kind of turning this into an outline anyway, this scope section, and like turn that into a more formal outline and just see if it's looking like a reasonable amount of material. Um, Really quick before we dive into that, though, I want to talk briefly timeline, just so we can try and keep ourselves on track. Given the scope, it's it's pretty narrow scoped. Um, we'll probably want to do like um, outline, draft. We probably draft the whole thing at once because it's pretty short, and then get review, publish the rough steps. So we could probably outline it in a week or two. I'll call it 1 week. Yeah. And then maybe spend 2 weeks drafting, kind of we're editing amongst ourselves. With yeah, I think this will we'll see when KubeCon happens. We can always add a week then, but um 2 weeks for drafting, and then I want to leave at least a couple weeks for getting a little bit of broader review before we publish. And then we can iterate plus time to iterate, right? So I'll give it like 3 weeks for that. We'll tell external reviewers it's like 2 weeks, but then it gives us a week to edit and to bother them and all of that. And then, publish this doesn't really take time. Actively. So then, yeah, I can turn that into something more full, but that's the rough idea. We can make those into deadlines, but that seemed feasible. And this isn't written in stone. If stuff takes us longer, it takes us longer. But this way we have goals. Okay. Which means this week is the outline. So we can start that here, and then maybe do folks have time to iterate a bit during the week? Would folks prefer doing mostly synchronous in this time that we have blocked off?
I have some time during the week, but there's also a chance I'll get distracted.
I think that's the worry with that. So I guess we can see how far we get in this meeting with the outline and then go from there. So is everyone okay making this just the working doc where we keep editing in the same doc instead of getting lost in doc?
I threw up a new tab to do the draft in
Oh,
because
that's a good idea. Yeah, I like that. Okay. I
you didn't
forgot.
used to be able to do that, and so
I
you
know,
did
it's
like
great.
a paragraph thing.
Yeah, because I used to have to make like 3 different docs for editing all these different. Okay, so I'm copying the scope and turning it into an outline. I guess you can see my screen, so you can see me doing that. But so this will be like intro, um, slash summary, something. These seem like the 3 main sections. Any other main sections that we should talk about? Maybe some kind of background, but I don't know how.
Yeah. Maybe a few examples of previous compromises.
Okay.
Hey, we're not just making this stuff up. And if you ignore this, you might have these kinds of annoying things to deal with.
Yeah, and I think we can do this like make it like a short section
Yeah.
with links to details.
Yeah.
For that, and then I think also at the end we can do like a references, which is basically just a list of links. I really can't type today. Okay, there we are. Um, okay, yeah, I mean, we can, I guess, start going into a little bit more detail of some of these too. So, okay, so yeah.
One thing that I often like is to give people a little bit of a mental construct, like, here's how to think about this at the start. And so that feels like it may be worth, hey, when you're running a GitHub action, effectively you are cloning the action and, then running code from it in the permission space of your own GitHub account. Does that feel like a mental model that matches what other people think of for GitHub Actions?
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting nuance about how it has access. I mean, it's implied here, but how it has access to not only your code, but also like any secrets that are involved in the build process.
And if you use your build process to publish your packages and so forth, it can publish packages on your behalf. If it has access, if your build process has access to Slack, then, all these actions potentially, have access to Slack and whatever else.
It can modify the build that you publish.
Oh, yeah, if it has permissions to push, to modify a branch.
I mean, if you're using it in your actual publishing, then I mean it could infect
Or your
your
website.
artifact that you're publishing
Yeah.
to the releases.
That kind of breaks the promise of open source, right? If the build is not the same as the code. Okay, yeah.
We don't necessarily have to include all of those in there, but helping people get a mental model of what it means to have access to that stuff feels like it helps people understand why am I talking about this and what is it that I'm protecting? Why do I care?
Yeah. And then if we get like these first three sections to be like the first page or so, that way people who read it only the first page will get the mental model and the idea of why this is a problem. And then people who
Yeah,
want to actually do it can read the,
yeah.
the advice. Yeah. Um, I like that. Okay. So okay, so I
And
think okay.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna move on, so if you have something more there, go for it.
No, I was going to as well.
Okay, cool. So, I was going to say that
Since we
these next ones, we have a lot of questions in these sections, and I think we now need to start turning those into actual like guidance. So that's going to be, I think, the next tricky part. Um, so how do you
since we
choose?
brought up permissions above, I kind of keep circling back to if this recipe is just about dependencies. Or so what I'm getting at is, do we want to include applying minimum token permissions, like for the GitHub token, in this recipe?
Um, maybe there can be like a little section about just like GitHub permissions that are helpful when setting this up. Um, does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
guess it does. It's an angle of the third-party actions. Like it helps to limit what they can do, but I mean, it's only
And we can
some
always,
help.
we can always like write the section or start writing the section and then move it to, the next recipe card if we decide it's getting too broad.
I think there's probably a additional recipe card for writing your own actions, including writing your own action steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we shouldn't cover writing them here for sure.
I
Like how to
I
choose
sort of
them.
wanted to, but then I started thinking about the breadth of that, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes down to just like general like security best practices when writing any kind of code and stuff like that. But this is not exactly code, but whatever. Okay. So what is our answer to the question? How do you choose CI dependencies? Um, yeah, computation. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm new to this, so I wonder what exists already. Guidelines and that what people already say is good to do, because so we can
Yeah,
use as reference and also maybe. But here, are we just thinking ourselves and what we already know?
yeah, that's a good question. Because yeah, if there's something that already exists, we can just like state it in link versus having to explain like why. Um, let me see. Does anyone have off the top of their head an idea for resources here? Maybe this can be our during the week work of like finding some of those references.
Yeah.
Because I can.
Yeah, it should definitely be part of the recipe. At the end, the references, resources, things that we can cite as existing practices.
Um, yes, maybe if we define the problem in synchronously here, we can then go out and find things to link to answer the questions.
I wonder if there's any difference between like choosing CI dependencies and normal code dependencies. Like, is there anything specific there? Because, for example, count stars, all those things that you already do when you're looking for, any code dependencies.
Yeah, I guess like the main thing I think is different is the kind of idea of like the built-in ones. The like instead of the language standard library, you have like the GitHub built-in ones. Which I think maybe has a slightly different like trust level and stuff. But yeah, I think it's definitely a lot of the similar ideas, right? You want reputable stuff that lots of people are using. And maybe there can be something too about like when to write it yourself. Because there's some danger, because there's both some danger and some benefit to writing it yourself, right? No one's purposely injecting malware if you write it yourself, but also you could do it wrong. So
And you won't get any future updates.
yeah,
But that feels like maybe that goes down to the next item.
the responding to vulnerabilities,
Maybe. I'm not sure.
maybe. I'll write it there and we can always move it. Yeah, I guess we can move to that one as well. So I think I'll put a to-do for each of these of references. That way, like if anyone during the week finds some, we can just check them off like
Yeah.
one at a time. I bet there's some list somewhere of like GitHub permissions that we can reference. Um, yeah, I think this is a great one where we can just suggest that people use one of these various tools that exists for pinning and stuff.
So pinning and upgrading are great as long as someone actually fixes it upstream.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that's where I think this last one comes up. So if you publish your own, you obviously have to actually fix the bug yourself. And then if you, yeah, if something upstream is unmaintained, this is the whole problem with software supply chain security, right? You can have all the best upgrades and stuff, but then if they choose to not fix it, for some reason, then what do you do?
So it occurs to me that like when working with actions before, either to like figure out what they're doing or to look at different versions of them or to fix my own, I found this tool that I just put in chat to be like crazy useful. I don't know if others have seen it, but I've used it for years. It just lets you run everything locally so that you don't have to do like the round trip to the actual repo to test out changes or to see things working or just to get your head around like what's going on, because it just pulls the Docker containers and runs it all locally. I found it to be super useful and at MIT, but I don't know if this part or not. But
Yeah, I think at least worth adding to the references as like a useful tool for folks.
yeah, in particular, when you're like writing your own actions, it kind of it just dramatically speeds things up rather than making like a private repo or something like that and
Yeah,
just
and having to keep
seeing what
pushing that.
happens and waiting and waiting and waiting. You can just fast iterate.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Full disclosure, I have nothing to do with the project at all.
Put that down in references for now. We can kind of figure out a better way to link to stuff.
For
I guess
the
this question.
dependency cooldown, I recall some Slack discussion
Yes.
uh,
Yeah, we had
through.
a somewhat heated discussion around this recently. So yeah, this will be good.
I don't
Now I,
recall who was involved, who the participants in that were, but if maybe we can invite them to share their thoughts.
yeah, I think that's one of the ones where I think it's worth listing pros and cons because yeah, I think there are pros and cons. But if you get the bugs first, but you get the fixes first. Basically is the trade-off. It's also interesting too, because if like everybody starts doing a 24-hour dependency cooldown, it actually loses its effectiveness because you don't actually get other people testing it before you do.
Except you still get all the security companies
Hmm.
eventually.
Fair enough. I guess people who are paid to check it will check it, and then
Hey, this package didn't previously have a package install and now it has an install script. So let's download it and see if it's got any crazy stuff in it, like a big long binary, or a hex encoded string.
yeah.
So yeah, I I feel like for CI the case is probably even stronger than for regular applications, but
Mhm.
I understand that Justin also has scars from getting people to upgrade things at all. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say don't upgrade. I'm saying upgrade automatically, but with a little caution.
That's sort of what like Dependabot and stuff do already, right? Is that it's upgrade automatically, but you have to click the button, which kind of does that.
And they run like once a week potentially.
Yeah.
And so you get some gap already. Unless there is something that's labeled as a urgent security thing, and then they will do it immediately.
Mhm.
That's a good topic is scheduling just in general, like scheduling and grouping, because I mean, it can cause a lot of spam for maintainers. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so do you want to do patches daily and minor updates weekly? Do you want to group various things?
Yeah, I think from a usability standpoint, even regardless of the dependency cooldown, having it be like a once a week, one maintainer has to go in and look at them versus like every day you get these random emails. I think can make a big difference to people actually doing it.
You can also get it to send you all the updates once a week in one PR rather than
Yeah.
having 5 PRs, which works well if your CI is fairly reliable at catching these things. And if it's not, then it may or may not induce other problems.
Yeah, I think we probably won't go too much into testing here, but just maybe a shout out that you should have good tests when you do this. Is probably. Okay, I think we have some stuff to talk about there. To find resources for. How about self-hosted and GitHub hosted runners? Um,
So if we're only talking about dependencies, this may be slightly less relevant.
so I'll just leave it like that for now, and then we'll, if we decide it comes back into scope, we can get back to it. Um,
Oh, actually, there is one thing. Upgrading the runner image if you're running it yourself.
okay, yeah.
Another supply chain dependency. And you should be
Should you
figuring
pin
out
it?
what?
Should you pin it
Yeah.
or just use latest?
Latest doesn't do what you probably want unless you also do pull policy always, which is going to pull a lot more container images than you would otherwise. Because if you don't say image pull policy always, it says, oh, do I have the tag latest on this machine? And it will use whatever happens to be living on that machine that was tagged at latest when it was pulled. Which
So we're
could be
talking about like Ubuntu latest and Windows latest.
For any container image. If you say latest on Kubernetes, and you're running it on Kubernetes at least, it won't necessarily go up to the repository and re-resolve what latest tag points to.
I'm still not sure if we're talking about the same thing. Let me.
Um,
So are we talking about the runs on
um,
like this?
no.
Okay, that's what I consider the GitHub runner.
I think it means
If you're using something like the GitHub Actions Runner controller, it runs pods that go up and talk to the GitHub API to pull down the GitHub Actions to be executed.
I see. Okay.
You actually need to upgrade that piece of software too that goes and talks to GitHub.
there's two things here. So if you're doing self-hosted, you have to um, you have to do both. And then maybe we can like find a link to something. Maybe GitHub even has a page, but with like the benefits of self-hosted or something. Why they made the feature.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, that seems like a section that's kind of organized there. GitHub permissions discussion. This might be too broad as written the way we wrote it here, GitHub permissions. I feel like we need like GitHub action permissions or something. Just to focus it better. Yeah, talk about the GitHub token. Yeah. And maybe we can either find again like some article that has a screenshot of that, or we can make our own screenshot of like the actual permissions from some info, what it looks like if you're setting that. Cool. Anything that anyone feels we're missing? Either a new section or something that we need to talk about in depth before we can like find resources for all this.
Scorecard does a nice job at the GitHub action permission check and the pinning check also.
And which one? The pinning. Okay.
Yeah, for detecting it.
I'll just make a comment. We can do that better. Does anyone want to take on a particular section to just find some resources? Things like scorecard, things like even GitHub docs that describe some of this stuff. Or of course, anything like about supply chain security in particular that's been written. We have.
I feel like the how to choose CI dependencies is fuzzier than the others.
Okay.
In that there isn't sort of a well-written like rules to use, whereas when you're talking about like responding to a vulnerability, like you can measure, is there a CVE or not?
Yeah.
That part has more opinion. I don't know if we want to adjust the order of things because we're starting out with opinion and moving to really concrete and then to sort of in between and then maybe more concrete again.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna propose something. If we, because I think that the concrete and not concrete is one aspect. I think the other aspect is like the order in which you need to think about this stuff. If you have an empty repo, or even you have a repo you just haven't thought about security in, what are the things you should do in order? And like GitHub permissions is like I think kind of an easy first step where you can like just you can check that off your list, Um, versus some of this other stuff I think is a more, and I think this one too is like a decision you make early on. Versus these other two are kind of these are more like long-term maintenance. Does that make sense as a way to kind of order it?
I'm happy to listen to that story. Like I feel like with this set of facts, there's 2 or 3 different stories we could tell.
Yeah.
And we just need to tell a story that's flows from beginning to end.
I
Not
would
my son's stories.
I would suggest having some kind of dependency management tool in place as the first step.
So like this one first.
Um,
Oh no, or
No.
like
The dependency management stuff is all at the end.
oh, it's all at the end now. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think how to choose, I think definitely makes sense as last because that's like, I don't know, that's again, that's your
I
long
could
term.
see how to choose as even a separate recipe
Yeah.
if we wanted, if we find that we're getting bogged down in that one.
I think that one is a matter of taste rather than hard facts. And asking people to develop their taste before they have any understanding of anything else is probably a big ask.
Yeah, so I think we put this last, and then depending on how it's going, we could even just like have a passing reference to it instead of a whole section. Yeah, I think that there are definitely wrong ways to do it, but there's a lot of right ways to do it. So
But there's a lot of wrong ways to do it too.
yeah. Yeah, versus I think there's other stuff I think we could very easily make like more like what we want to do, like a recipe card, where like these are the permissions you should get. Like just go do that. Or whatever.
Is there maybe a checklist in here somewhere?
Yeah, we could even like make each paragraph like a check a bullet like a check mark, as a way to
Oh,
force ourselves to make them actionable.
I was actually thinking of it's a gimmick, but the jump to recipe buttons that you get because everyone who publishes recipes on the internet is really writing for search engines. Um, and so they have a bunch of pictures and descriptions and stories about their dog and, where they went to pick their pumpkins. And then, if you actually want to cook the recipe, you hit that button at the top and you get like three-quarters of the way down the page. Maybe
So
I'm
like,
the only one who cooks recipes off the internet all the time, but
we put like a checklist like here before the references with like a jump.
you could put it there, or you could put it before how to choose CI dependencies.
Yeah, I think depending on how Appendix C that section becomes, we can.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think we can just have we're going to fill out a checklist, and you know, once we've written the other paragraphs, it'll be clear which stuff goes in the checklist.
yeah. And I do like, yeah, like I said, I do like the idea that the checklist forces it to be actionable stuff that we write, not just like, oh, you should think about, I don't know, this thing, but like, actually go in and make this change. Um,
I also find it handy as a practitioner to be able to say, did I actually get this stuff done?
yeah.
What about secrets? Is it worth addressing secrets here as part of either a checklist or something else? Particularly like if actions published to repositories, package repositories, or
I
actions.
think it could be in the permissions discussion,
Yeah. I'll just
but we're
write it
talking
there.
about dependencies here, so I'm not like the exciting thing with secrets is you can either give all access or no access.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about in terms of like dependencies, like you know, like CI action might take a dependency on an external system or an external
Yeah.
database or something like that as a dependency, and then to actually access it, you need a secret to get there. So I don't want to scope creep either, but I was just curious about.
I guess if you see an action that has you supply a parameter that should be a secret, that's probably a good sign not to use it.
There's probably maybe that's the calculus for like danger, Will Robinson, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that here under how to choose because I think that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have seen actions that do that, that just like, put your token here as the second parameter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually
though
just like,
is that
hacky stuff that somebody wrote, but sorry.
the problem is that the actions have access to your secrets regardless of whether you pass them in directly or not. So I almost prefer that somebody says, here, I want your token. They're being explicit.
Well, I mean, the other thing is they can say, hey, you need to have a secret with name such and so.
I mean, theoretically, they could ask you for secrets that, like, even more secrets that aren't already in there. But
I always thought it'd be cool to like make a tool for GitHub Actions that could like generically kind of sandbox an action, kind of like that ACT, the Act tool, and like generate like a flow diagram of like all the things that that action does. You know, does it connect to an external surface, or does it open a port, or does it? It's like a dev tool, you know.
yeah, that'd be cool. I'm gonna call it out of scope for now, but I think that would make this how to choose much easier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I found that Act tool because my CIO years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, my CIO wanted like some kind of proof, like, okay, we want to use this action. How do I know what it does? So like, we're like running it locally with a Wireshark, and
Hey, when did
You're
some kind of
very
like
trusting.
system call tracing on it? Anyway, you've that would be a fun project, but
I'm just going to say, if you look at the Notepad++ incident, it didn't compromise all the updates. They only compromised them from select users. So the syscalls may not be sufficient because they may be fingerprinting whether it's in the CI environment or not.
you can actually, and it's actually funny with system call tracing too. You can get some funny behavior where you get extra behavior because you're tracing the system calls and stuff like that. It's actually, anyway.
I was going to say you should be able to pick out of the environment, oh, am I in CI? And if so, which project, you know, which GitHub thing am I in? And
Mhm.
then you can be like, oh, no, we're going to do silent mode. We're only going to do the good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe someone will be nerds typed into doing that project now. So that's fun. That'd be great for us to link to. Um, but yeah, okay, so we have like 5 minutes left. So I figure, do we want to like yeah, does anyone want to volunteer to take on anything in particular, or we can just do make it a free for all as folks have time to just add some resource links and stuff like that so that we can be prepped for kind of writing starting next week.
I was going to ask, are we actually moving to drafting or are we still outlining?
I think we're still outlining. I won't delete it if someone starts writing things, but um, I think that'd be nice to have the resources before we start properly drafting, because if we find stuff with guidance and stuff, we can then use that to both to write less stuff ourselves and to reference other stuff, and also just to solidify what the guidance should be.
Probably can't this week, but I could take one next week.
Okay, yeah, that'll work. Do you have a favorite one?
Either permissions or dependencies, dependency updates.
Okay, this one's first on the list. I'll put you here unless. Actually, I'll let you tag. Can you have access here? Do you want to tag yourself? I don't know if I have your email or
Oh,
what you want to use for. Oh yeah, or you can just write your name. That works. Um, anyone else want to play? I think we can skip CI dependencies for now. I think, you know, but maybe if we could get people to claim these two, I could take either one if someone wants to take the other.
You can sign me up for one, except for that taste one.
Yeah, no, I think we'll potentially skip that for now and then see where we get without it. Um, I'll put you here,
Okay.
because this one's interesting. And this doesn't mean that anyone else is not allowed to work on things. This is just to, so if anyone else finds things, wants to add them, whatever, that's great. I think I can't tell who's writing in the doc, because some people are already adding some links, so that's great.
That's me.
Yeah.
Can't stop me.
Yeah, and if someone wants to take on this piece, that feel free to do that as well. If we can find some good guidance. Great. That seems like a plan. So maybe we can try in the next couple weeks, we'll gather all of that and then we can start working on the write-in. So okay, thanks everyone. Any final thoughts? Concerns? Thanks all. Have a great week and see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.